Hello and welcome. I'm going to call this Assembly Committee on Education to order. It is February 18th. Will Madam Secretary please call the roll?
Assemblywoman Duran.
Here. Sorry.
It's okay. Assemblyman Flores.
Present.
Assemblywoman Gorlow.
Here.
Assemblywoman Hardy. Oh, Assemblywoman Hanson, I'm sorry.
Here, but not seen.
Assemblywoman Hardy.
Here.
Assemblywoman Krasner. Okay. Assemblywoman Marzola.
Here.
Assemblyman MacArthur. Assemblywoman Miller.
Here.
Assemblywoman Nguyen.
Here.
Assemblywoman Tolles.
Here.
Assemblywoman Torres.
Here.
Chair Bilbray Axelrod.
Here. And we do have a quorum, but please note for the record that Assemblyman MacArthur will not be with us today, so mark him absent excused. I believe we will have Assemblywoman Krasner, so when she arrives, please mark her that she is present. And just for the record, Assemblywoman Hanson is having some issues with her camera. We hope to have those resolved during the meeting, but know that she is here and can see all of us and will be actively taking part in the committee meeting today. Okay, so welcome to you all who are visiting, viewing us online or through our YouTube channel. Also those who are participating by phone and video. Just a few housekeeping things before we start. If you haven't done so already, please make sure to mute your microphone when you are not speaking to minimize background noise. Committee members, please keep your cameras on for the duration of the meeting to ensure a quorum is present unless you physically cannot. We do expect courtesy and respect in this committee. We don't always agree on policy. In fact, there may be disagreements on today's bill, but we need to be respectful to each other and the legislative process. Reminder to people watching, meeting materials can be accessed on the committee's webpage of Nellis, which can be located through the Nevada Legislature website. Reminder for those watching online in this virtual world, we do have several screens going on, members of the committee. So if you see members looking away, they're looking at materials for the committee. In regards to the hearing, we have one hearing this afternoon, and I have allocated equal time in testimony for support, opposition, and neutral. To be specific, each person providing testimony will be allowed a maximum of 2 minutes. Staff will time each speaker to ensure everyone is given an equal opportunity to speak. Speakers are urged to avoid repetition of comments made by previous speakers. If they've said what you wanted to say before, you can say ditto, or they said exactly what I wanted to say. We will limit the overall testimony for each side to 30 minutes. We may or may not, on how many people we have in line, break it up into 10 minutes of support, 10 minutes of opposition, and 10 minutes of neutral. But if it looks like we only have about 5 or 6 in each category, we might just go ahead and get through them. So we'll make that determination when we get there. If you wish to testify and have not done so already, please register online through the link provided on the agenda of the meeting. Registration opens when the agenda is posted on the Nevada Legislature's website. Upon successful registration, you'll receive a telephone number, meeting ID, and instructions for joining the meeting. So that we have an accurate record and count, we ask that you do not share this link, this information, but instead encourage others to also register and participate. You may also register even if you do not wish to testify, so there's a record of your interest in a particular bill. You may also submit public comments in writing, either in addition to or in lieu of testifying. The chair or members of the committee may request testifiers to submit documentation to support their testimony. And it looks like we have Assemblywoman Hanson on video, so welcome. I will now open the hearing on Assembly Bill 57. This bill temporarily suspends certain requirements relating to certain teacher and administrator's evaluation. Superintendent McNeil, please begin when you are ready.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. Can you all hear me?
We can.
All right. Well, good afternoon, Madam Chair, and members of the Assembly Education Committee. I'm Dr. Kristen McNeil, Superintendent of the Washoe County School District. I'm here to present, as you know, Assembly Bill 57, and I'm joined by two members of our team, Mr. Ben Hayes and Miss Emily Ellison. You have been provided a document for your use that explains the components of this proposed legislation. As background, the Washoe County School District Board of Trustees voted to move forward with this piece of legislation back in August of 2020. The school year had just begun, and as you've heard, in Washoe County, we were operating under 3 different models of learning: in-person, hybrid, and full distance. While our team worked diligently over the summer to lay the groundwork for this reopening plan, there was a tremendous amount of stress and anxiety in our system. With that in mind, our intent was to take as many tasks off our teachers' plates as possible. We wanted them to be able to focus on their students' physical, emotional, and academic needs. We knew this school year would be like no other, and it's turned out to be so true. So many unknowns and unanswered questions about learning and our family's ability to support learning at home. We believe that temporarily eliminating the requirement for teachers to create student learning goals that are required by law to account for 15% of their evaluation was just a small step our administration could take in relieving that level of anxiety. The pause on student learning goals is just that. It would expire in school year 2023 and 2024, as you can see in sections 1 and 2 of the proposed legislation. Washoe County School District was an early adopter of using student achievement data as part of teacher evaluations all the way back to the Teacher Incentive Fund grant we received as a district from the federal government to pilot this work back in 2012. Since then, we've learned many lessons about good and bad ways to use student achievement data and creating the appropriate incentives around student performance. These lessons lead us to believe that temporarily elimination of student learning goals will not negatively impact our students. There are likely ways we could minimize the time and commitment the SLG development process has on our teachers and administrators. But that minimization would result in a lesser product. Standardizing the process is the opposite of the intent of an SLG, which is designed to be a customized process between a principal and a teacher. Make no mistake, recovery from this pandemic will take more than 1 year. Our teachers need to have that space to set lofty targets without threat, compliance distractions, or unintended consequences. We believe moving forward with this pause will send a message to our teachers that they are free to be innovative, be creative, and set aggressive academic goals for our students without trepidation that coming up short of those stretch goals will negatively impact their evaluation or employment status. There is enough anxiety in our system now without adding to it. We expect our building principals to drive those high expectations for all teachers and students through existing evaluation processes and continuous feedback. Again, teachers continue to receive robust evaluations that provide for accountability and feedback based on rigorous academic standards from their administrator. Madam Chair, we agree that there is some evidence in SLG outcomes as an approach to educator accountability. The issue at hand, though, is the pandemic has shifted the ways teachers need to be responsive to students' needs based on available data. This is a time for support, flexibility, grace, and the ability to change course to meet students' basic and educational needs. We need to honor our teachers as professionals who are working incredibly hard and spending ample extra time right now. Our teachers work in professional learning communities and use the Plan, Do, Study, Act cycle, which is far more responsive to analyzing real-time data and ensuring growth in standards for the time being. For now, individual SLGs as part of performance evaluations will distract from necessary collaboration and likely weaken expectations. We ask you to honor that the educational profession has changed due to this pandemic, and that there are instructional shifts teachers must make. They need time to make those changes, the courage to take those risks, and the ability to understand our students' needs. We need to look at diagnostic data, which gives a clearer picture of immediate student needs. This is not about appeasing any group. This is about doing what is best and putting the focus where it needs to be, on our students. Lastly, we understand that the current language may negatively impact a pilot program in the Clark County School District related to compensation for teachers who meet student achievement benchmarks. We weren't aware of that program when the bill was drafted and would certainly consider any amendment related to allowing that program to continue uninterrupted as a friendly amendment once we've been able to review the language. I'm pleased to be available to answer any questions of the committee, along with our Chief Accountability Officer, Ben Hayes, and our Chief Human Resources, Emily Ellison. Thank you again for taking the time to hear this important legislation.
Thank you, Superintendent McNeil. As mentioned, we do have a proposed amendment from the Clark County School District and the Clark County Education Association that we are going to hear before we open it up to questions. Superintendent, I was under the assumption that you had reviewed the amendment. Perhaps someone in your office might have, and I was under the assumption that it was considered a friendly amendment and that you had seen the language. So if after it is read, if you could just clarify that, and then we will open it up to questions.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chair.
I believe is it Brad Keating who will be, or Brenda, are you?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Brenda.
You're welcome. Yes, my name is Dr. Brenda Pearson. I work as the Director of Strategic Policy Initiatives with the Clark County Education Association. Brad isn't able to make it today. He has another meeting that he's occupied in. I want to thank, first of all, Lindsay Anderson and the Washoe County School District for the time you spent with us trying to make this language work with the original bill that you guys have put forth. We really appreciate the time and energy you spent with us. So the amendment, as you probably have in front of you, states this: notwithstanding the mandatory provisions of Section 2 of this Act, if an agreement entered into before the effective date of this act between the school district and an employee organization provides incentives to teachers on the basis of learning goals for pupils established pursuant to NRS 391-480. A teacher who is subject to such an agreement may continue to develop learning goals for pupils pursuant to NRS 391-480 to satisfy the requirements of the agreement for the duration of the agreement. So 2 years ago, starting in the 2019-20 academic year, we began a program called the Innovative 8 Middle School Pilot Project. And essentially what we did was we focused on 8 middle schools that were the bottom 5% performing in the state. And we really took a look at what can help teachers improve their practice. How can we ensure that administrators are part and parcel collaborating with the teachers to improve student achievement. We've found great success, but the reason why I'm here today is the SLGs is a key component of the rubric we use in order to evaluate a teacher's progress. They have a pay-for-performance model that's incorporated within a 3-year program, and we're in the middle of the 2nd year right now. And so bringing this bill forward, we want to make sure that we have a little carve out for these folks, because part of their requirement is to have an SLG in place and to monitor the progress of their students and add a bit of accountability to see what has happened and what growth has happened over the year. So with that, I will take any questions.
Thank you very much. Superintendent McNeil, have you had a chance to look over the amendment?
Yes, it's friendly and we're fine with it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you for that. Okay, with that, I will open it up to questions. I do have a few from the chat. I have Assemblywoman Nguyen, Assemblywoman Miller, and Assemblywoman Torres, and then we will fill in from there. And also, please, for the record, note that Assemblywoman Krasner is and has been in the meeting for quite some time, and I just wanted to get that on the record. So go ahead, Assemblywoman Nguyen.
Thank you, Chair. I'm new to this committee, and so I was looking at some of the other aspects of other ways and other places in our statute that we legislate evaluations like this, and I couldn't find anyone. So I think this might be the only one. I was wondering, one, if you could correct that, if I'm incorrect on that. And then two, can you kind of describe the process in which teachers are evaluated and how they are held accountable for demonstrating student learning? Does that make sense?
Yes, that question is for me?
Yes.
Yes, okay. I don't know the statute offhand that incorporates student learning goals, but essentially what a teacher does at the beginning of the school year is they review data that they have on the books or state-based data that they have received over the last year, and they decide what are the deficits or the weaknesses that may be existing within that class or that group of students that they may have. And so they monitor, do baseline data, and then they target their instruction throughout the year to increase and improve the academic performance of a specific standard or area of standards. They monitor those across the year, and at the end of the year, they are going to report back to their administrator how much growth has been made. At the beginning of the year, they make a goal. They set a goal saying 90% of my students will become proficient in this standard. And at that end of the time, they're evaluated against that mark. And so that's what our Innovative 8 Middle School Pilot Project has done. At this moment, I can share with you that the data that we have seen for these 8 middle school, even within the midst of a pandemic, is higher than the district average in most cases. And so that's just something we're very proud of.
May I follow up, Chair? I appreciate as this relates to the SLGs, but teachers, do teachers only assess students during the SLG, or are there other ways that teachers assess students? I'm assuming there are. It seems like there are a lot of ways that they're being assessed.
Yes, thank you for the question, Brenda Pearson, for the record. Yes, they do, of course. There's statewide assessments that we use. We have district level assessments that we use. Within the student learning goals, they're required to use 3, I believe, assessments across the year so they can show growth across time. And so that's an important component of what we're doing. So yes, there are many different assessments, but these are the targeted ones because we really want to make sure, for example, that if a student's knowledge of mathematics is low and they're in a middle school, they need to make sure that they're focusing on that number sense or their ability to compute. And so that's how we're able to really track and make sure that we are focusing on standards that are going to help these students with college and career readiness.
Madam Chair, if I may. So in order to answer that question, I would like our Chief HR Officer, because I think it would help actually to help
And
kind of.
I'm sorry, Superintendent, can you identify yourself? We have a lot of people testifying today, and I know it's not typical, but if you could identify yourself before you speak.
Absolutely, yes. Superintendent McNeil, the Washoe County School District. So I'm going to have our Chief HR Officer, Miss Emily Ellison, kind of walk through what the evaluation process looks like, because I think that'll help kind of provide some additional context to this.
Thank you.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Emily Ellison, for the record, Chief Human Resources Officer with the Washoe County School District. The student learning goal is just one component of the comprehensive evaluation system. And so when we think about the process that employers engage in and that our teachers and our administrators engage in, it's really a comprehensive process that starts at the beginning of the year. Probationary and post-probationary teachers experience a little bit of differentiation in terms of the number of observations that occur. But if you think about kind of at a high level what's happening, the year starts off with a goal setting process. Then prior to each formal observation that occurs in the classroom, there's what's called a pre-conference. And during that process, administrators and educators are really reflecting on what can be expected to be seen during that observation, what standards are being taught, what strategies the teacher is anticipating using, so that the administrator kind of knows what they're looking for as they're going into the classroom. And then the observation occurs. That is a defined period of time in which the administrator is in the classroom and experiencing that environment with the educator. And then there's a post-conference. And those three steps, again, are really part of a comprehensive system of planning for, observing, and then reflecting on performance as it relates to the standards and student achievement. And so artifacts and student work product are also embedded into those stages. So a teacher might, for example, during the post-conference and during that reflective process, work with their administrator to provide other examples that illustrate what they're experiencing in the classroom ongoing. And so the student learning goals are just one component of a comprehensive performance evaluation and development system.
Thank you very much.
If I could just follow up really quickly, it should be quickly. I appreciate you explaining it. Obviously, I come at it from a very different perspective in watching my children undergo like incredible amounts of standardized testing and other things that it turns out are not necessarily assessing them. And it looks like it's assessing their teachers. And it seems like an overwhelming number of things, like in other professional agencies and other professional like worlds. I've never seen this lack of autonomy that our teachers are given. So I appreciate the explanations. Yeah, and I will probably follow up after this meeting just for some other more detailed conversations about this. Thank you.
Thank you, Assemblywoman. I was also going to point out that I do know that we have representatives from NDE. So I don't know if a representative would like to speak on this now. Oh, hello, Dr. Gonzalez. If you would like to speak on it now, or if you, why don't you go ahead, and you look like you're ready.
Thank you, Chair Gilbert Axelrod, Felicia Gonzalez, Deputy Superintendent, for the record. I don't have anything else to add to this conversation. I do want to say that Mrs. Ellison did a great job, and Dr. Pearson also did a fabulous job. But I am also here and available to answer any questions related to the student learning goal or to the NEPF evaluation, if any additional clarification is needed.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we will move on to the next question. Next on deck, we have Vice Chair Miller.
Thank you, Chair. And if I may, I have a few brief questions.
I'm not surprised.
And the questions are, I know before I ask the question, we did have the First Amendment addressed, but I was just wondering, was there another amendment, or anyone, has everyone presented that was planning on presenting?
I believe we only have the one amendment.
Okay, so I will ask the question, and then even if legal needs to answer or whoever needs to answer would be fine. My first question is, does the NEPF and SLGs apply to charter schools?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Vice Chair Miller. This is Amanda Marincic, Committee Counsel. So the student learning goals are required to be developed pursuant to 391.480. I believe just apply to school districts, not charter schools.
So charter schools are not using the NEPF and the SLGs?
That is specifically for LGs. The broader performance frameworks. Give me just one moment. I believe also only applies to the Board of Trustees of school districts, so school districts, not charter schools.
Okay, and with that, it's my understanding that it's actually in statute that when it comes to this, that for evaluations of teachers, that the school boards, the Board of Trustees for each district actually has, or should be, is actually, they're supposed to be reviewing evaluations each year for their staff. Is that true?
This is Amanda Marincic, Committee Counsel. Yes, I believe that is correct.
Okay, so then if that is correct, is this bill redundant? Wouldn't the school boards have the ability to waive the SLGs on their own if they reviewed and found that it was, if they found under what we just heard the superintendent present, which echoes exactly everything that we're hearing educators and parents express. So in that case, the school boards, essentially the trustees, could review the evaluation process. And the same thing, if they see that the SLG is inappropriate at this time, would they have the ability to actually waive it themselves?
This is Amanda Marincic, Committee Counsel. So pursuant to NRS 391.465, which is proposed to be amended by Section 1 of AB 57, currently the SLGs determine pupil growth as determined by the SLGs that are required to be developed pursuant to 391.480. And as the statute currently reads, those SLGs pupil growth account for 15% of the evaluation of the teacher, and that is statutorily required. So currently the school board is not able to waive the 15% requirement that's tied to the SLGs.
Okay, but they are, or they should be enforcing the fact that the law says that teachers, the SLG is supposed to be teacher-centric, where the teacher actually determines what the goals for the students are and how it should be measured. Even though as we come back session after session after session, we know that that's not happening. My last question, and this may be for Washoe directly, is there was a study and reports done, and I know that many of us have heard it multiple times. It was presented during the interim Committee on Education. It was presented from many different committees, but UNLV, I believe it was, did a study on the NEPF overall and didn't have the most favorable things to say about its effectiveness in what people, especially non-educators, believe is the actual goal, which is if you just hold teachers even more accountable, you will get better results. And so I was just wondering, and maybe again, this is a question for Washoe, if that study, if those results were part of your consideration, or was this something as a district that you had determined, beforehand? I was just wondering if you could speak a little bit more on how you came to, because again, with past history, knowing where Washoe stood on SLGs and the NEPF, I was just wondering how you came to this place to in support of teachers and admin, because admin are subject to this as well, how you came to this place, and if that evaluation had any impact on your decision.
I appreciate the question, Madam Vice Chair. And if I may, so I'll begin, and then I'm going to turn it over to our Chief Accountability Officer, Mr. Hayes. And I'll just say, I go back to our original testimony, and it was really around taking a look at what our teachers are facing, and as well as our principals are facing right now during this, extraordinary time. And what could we do as district leadership to help kind of relieve some of that additional stress and pressure on them at this point in time? So I'll have Mr. Hayes go to your specific point about the study.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Ben Hayes, Washoe County School District. Yes, we are familiar with the study, and to Superintendent McNeil's earlier point, we were privileged to get a teacher incentive fund grant about 10 years ago that we rolled out student learning objectives. So we have our program evaluation and impact evaluation from that. And what we have found that at that time was similar to the findings that UNLV had, that there's a slight gain at the beginning and then it kind of levels out. And since then, what we've found, since it's been part of the teacher's evaluation, is that there's a tendency, whether subconsciously or not, speaking from kind of as an accountability propeller head, there's been a tendency to lower goals. So what I mean by that is 3 years ago, there was 82% of our students were meeting their student learning goals. The year after that, 86%, and then in the final year, the most recent year, 89%. We have not seen that growth in learning consequent with that. So I think there has been kind of a tendency, I'm sure you're all fairly familiar with Campbell's Law, and if you use any one metric, then it's bound to be corrupted. So I guess what I would say is the UNLV study, our program evaluation, and our data, kind of my looking at and analyzing the data, has shown that this has not been an accountability metric. It's kind of maybe become more of a distraction and compliance metric, whereas we're trying, especially in this pandemic time, to get through professional learning communities and teacher collaboration, loftier goals that teachers aren't afraid to miss because it'll impact their livelihood. So set loftier goals. And we know that the Nevada School Performance Framework, what is kind of nicknamed the STAR system, that's a more transparent and kind of collaborative framework. So teachers are really, especially principals and their staffs, look to that more for making student growth. So again, I kind of said 82%, then 86%, and then 89% were meeting their student learning growth targets. But in our district, it has been fairly flat, frustratingly flat at about 46% proficient and about 48% of our students making their adequate growth goals in order to get to proficiency, which is all measured from a bigger kind of SBAC, which is more psychometrically valid. Obviously doesn't guide his instruction as much. So I hope I answered your question.
You did, Mr. Hazen, and I don't mean to put words in your mouth, but it's almost like it seems like you said that the actual student learning goal to measure student learning goals wasn't measuring student learning goals.
Correct.
Okay. Just want to make sure I heard that correctly. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Vice Chair. We will move on to Assemblywoman Torres.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for your presentation. I really do appreciate this piece of legislation, Superintendent McNeil. I think that this is, I've had a lot of teachers reaching out to me over the last couple of weeks about their disappointment having to do the SLG, having difficulty getting a hold of students that maybe are not present, having those students now complete the SLG, especially when we've changed how we are marking attendance, right? With positive attendance, the student might be present. That doesn't necessarily mean the students are completing the work. So it's becoming overly cumbersome and strenuous for educators to ensure that the SLG gets complete, because we definitely want 100% completion when we're completing that assessment. My concerns with the legislation is not with the bill in and of itself, but rather with the amendment. And I just am hoping to get some clarification on the amendment that's being presented today. I'm very familiar with the Innovative 8 schools and the work that they're doing in our community. In fact, one of them is in my district and very close to my home. And so my concern, as I look at this amendment, is I'm not understanding, and I would like it clarified for the record, whether or not the intent is for us to require that the teachers complete the SLG and continue to make it a part of the evaluation for that educator, so that these teachers are now being evaluated based off of that SLG as they have been expected to in the past, or whether or not the intent is for them to just be required to still complete it, but it's no longer an evaluation mechanism.
Brenda Pearson for the record. Thank you for your question, Assemblywoman Torres. The answer is that it is not going to be added into their evaluation. The intent is for them to maintain the requirement of creating and monitoring a student learning goal, but then it's not necessarily factored into their evaluation. The language of the amendment does say such agreement may continue to develop learning goals. So during this remainder of this school year, we have all intents and purposes to maintain the student learning goal as it is, but we need to kind of go back to the drawing board when it comes to the second year to make sure that these are the best measures of accountability that we can have for these innovative 8 middle schools.
And I guess I'm just wondering if there's language that could be added that teachers will not be penalized for the outcomes of the SLG for this year, regardless of whether or not they're in those innovation schools. I would hate to see a teacher penalized for that at this time.
Thank you, Brenda Pearson, for the record. Yes, I will actually speak with Brad Keating about that and see if we can reach out to Lindsay Anderson and the Washoe County School District again. Thank you for that advice.
Thank you, Assemblywoman. That it's an important matter that you got on the record, so I appreciate that. Next, we will go to Assemblyman Flores.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for your presentation. I'm going to preface my question just because I don't want to give the impression that I come from this lens. But rather, I have gotten emails and just a bunch of people raising concerns and raising the flag of what this means to their child, right? And understandably, we all want our kids to come in at a certain level and that we have some type of understanding that they're growing and that's just common sense. And I know that our teachers are working incredibly hard, and this piece of legislation looks to give them the flexibility and take away some of those parameters to be able to just utilize their own skill set and their own creativity to help these kids excel. But I also want to speak to those parents who have sent us emails, who have called us, just to help alleviate them and let them understand that it's not what they think, that we're not somehow going to create some type of environment where their kids aren't growing, right? So if I could, I'm going to leave the question open-ended in that way so that I can give you the flexibility to navigate through that. But this is more just intended for those parents so that they understand that that's not what we're doing here.
No, absolutely, Assemblyman Flores and Krista McNeil, Superintendent for the Washoe County School District, for the record. I'll start out and then I'll have our Chief Accountability Officer, Ben Hayes, really talk about our robust assessment system, because you're absolutely right. This has nothing, to do with taking away accountability and looking at our students for growth. We want our teachers to be able to dive in and diagnostically take a look at where a student is now and where they're going to be going. And in fact, within the Washoe County School District, we're putting forward a 2-year strategic plan exclusively around that, around response and recovery. And that's what we want our teachers to be able to do, to have innovative ways to be able to provide that support for their students. So I absolutely appreciate that sentiment that your parents are reaching out. And this has nothing to do with taking away a teacher's ability to track progress for their students.
Hi, for the record, Ben Hayes, Washoe County School District. I don't have much to add to Dr. McNeil's point. 2 things real quickly though. We want this bill to free up space for teachers to do more what we call diagnostic assessment. So a little bit deeper on what the children have maybe lost or not gained what they should have during this this pandemic. So, and whereas an SLO or an SLG is often kind of a pre and a post test or a baseline and a growth after that test, we'd like to free up space for diagnostics and then kind of monitoring those diagnostic assessments and how the intervention is going, which doesn't fit neatly into an SLO at all. And then also to kind of latch on to Dr. McNeil's point about the strategic plan, the 2-year strategic plan, a big component of that is family engagement and kind of working with parents on what we need to kind of fill in the gaps that this pandemic has caused. So we're definitely on board with that. We have a big initiative of kind of moving our standards-based assessment system back to grade level standards. So whereas different tests kind of can tell you percentiles and different things like that, we want to be able to communicate with parents, teachers, students, families, how their kids are doing on the pathway to graduation, how they're doing on the grade level standards. So that's definitely a big part of it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hayes. Now I will open it up to more questions. If anybody has a question, they raise their hand. I see Assemblywoman Tolles. Is there anyone else? Okay, Assemblywoman Tolles. Oh, okay.
Assemblywoman Hardy had her hand raised too.
I just saw that. Thank you. Go ahead, Assemblywoman Tolles.
Okay. Thank you so much, and appreciate this ongoing discussion. We've had the discussion around SLGs and how we monitor and hold accountable while making sure that we're connecting to student outcomes. And as a teacher myself, I appreciate that discussion greatly. I think my one question that I don't know, and forgive me if I missed it, that I haven't had answered yet, and that is, we know that we're moving towards already, most school districts outside of Clark County have already opened up to a hybrid model. We're hoping that more and more of our schools will be able to open up more and more as we get on top of COVID. And so I know that this goes through the year 2022 to 2023. And there's been some questions and concerns about that timeline of stretching out that far. Certainly a great deal of understanding for the purpose of this currently and even into perhaps next year. But if you could speak a little bit to that timeline, I know that there's a lot of people that have questions about that.
Absolutely, and thank you so much, Assemblywoman Tolles. Kristen McNeil, Superintendent for the Washoe County School District, for the record. And we can appreciate that as far as the timeline that we've placed into the legislation so far. And, you know, we will continue absolutely to address those concerns. As I said in the original testimony, we are not anticipating that the recovery from this pandemic is going to take just 1 year, and it's going to take a couple of years to really dive in deep and make sure that our students have all the supports that they need. Again, we will continue to address those concerns and reach out to stakeholders and talk about that timeline as well. And we can appreciate that, and we've heard some of that feedback as well.
Thank you. And if I could just ask a quick follow-up then on that, I appreciate that. I appreciate how collaborative you always are, Superintendent McNeil, and with stakeholders. The way this bill is written, is there no wiggle room to be able to add back if that were to be appropriate, even if it was just 5% or 10%, or to, if you realize that we're getting there sooner by 2022 and 2023? Does this mandate that it has to stay at 0 all the way through, or is there some sort of way to have permissive language that if we are recovering more and reopening and seeing student progress, that it would be appropriate to start to gradually work this back in?
I think that's, sorry, Assemblywoman Tolles. Thank you, Kristen McNeil, Superintendent for the Washoe County School District, for the record. I need like a little shock thing that tells me to do that. I think that this is probably better a question that legal can kind of help us navigate around that as well too.
Thank you, Chair. This is Amanda Mernside, Community Counsel. So currently, as written, the 0% would be a requirement for each of those years. It's currently not written in such a way that it could be adjusted as needed by the districts or Department of Education.
Thank you for answering the question.
Oh,
And thank you for the time, Chair.
And I received a message in chat from Assemblywoman Hardy that you asked her question. So I'm not seeing any others. So we will move on to testimony, support, opposition, and neutral of AB 57. Please remember to clearly state and spell your name and limit your testimony to 2 minutes. Based on the number of calls we have in the queue, we're going to go ahead and push through and hopefully do all the support, then all the opposition, then all the neutral. So we will begin with support of AB 57. Staff from Broadcast and Production Services, please add the first caller.
Thank you, Chair. To testify in support on AB 57, please press star 9 now to take your place in queue. Caller with the last 3 digits, 987, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Hello, and thank you, Committee Chairwoman Bilberry Axelrod and committee members. My name is Marie Nisus, Marieneissess, and I am the president of the Clark County Education Association. The Clark County Education Association represents more than 18,000 licensed professionals in the Clark County School District. We are the largest independent teachers union in the country and in the state of Nevada. We engage in bipartisan advocacy for advancing public education in Nevada. We would like to thank the Washoe County School District for bringing this forth and ask this committee to consider the following. The Nevada Department of Education commissioned a report by UNLV Center for Research, Evaluation, and Assessment on the impact and the validity of the Nevada Educator Performance Framework. The report was presented to the Teachers and Leaders Council in May of 2020, and we would like to highlight 2 glaring conclusions. Number 1, growth on the teacher NEPS has no impact on school achievement growth. In other words, when teachers improve on their evaluations, students do not improve academically. 2, approximately 99% of all educators are found to be effective or highly effective on their NEPS evaluation. From this study, we note that the lowest performing schools in Nevada have an equivalent number of effective teachers as the highest performing schools in Nevada. We can also assume that a third-year teacher is rated as expected as often as a veteran teacher. These 2 conclusions are incredibly concerning and they need to be explored by this committee. Improvements in a teacher's instructional practice should lead to growth in student achievement. Educators across Nevada need an objective evaluation that aligns with student outcomes. We ask the committee to question the current teacher evaluation process and look to other states who have implemented successful evaluation systems. In the meantime, CCEA supports Assembly Bill 57, including the CCSD-CCEA friendly amendment, which enables educators and their bargaining agents who have entered into an agreement before the effective date of this act to provide incentives to teachers based on learning goals for pupils established pursuant to NRS 391.480. To continue to develop learning goals for pupils to satisfy the requirements of the agreement for the duration of the agreement. Every educator deserves to work with their students to define learning goals to ensure students walk away from K-12 public education with the tools necessary to succeed. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the call, Ms. Nisus. Can we move on to the next call in support?
Caller with the last 3 digits of 202. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Paige Barnes, Paigebarnes, and I am here today on behalf of the Nevada Association of School Boards in support of AB 57. We believe that this is a great way to support our teachers and administrators in these unprecedented times. We want to encourage our students and our teachers to set aggressive goals without the increased anxiety during COVID-19 and the recovery of this pandemic. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to the next caller in support.
Caller with the last 3 digits, 486. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Hi, good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Alexander Marks with the Nevada State Education Association. That's a MARKS. In 2019, you'll recall the NSCA sent a letter to each member of the body about over 2,000 emails from educators across the state about why SLO, SLG should be reduced from 40% to 15%. We still stand by our position that they should be at 0%. Student assessment should not be used for teacher evaluations. We think it's a poor policy. And we just didn't think the effort was needed even last session for this type of non-controversial legislation. That's why we've been rallying under the banner, Listen to Educators. I'd like to read a letter from educator Don Echeverry, who is the NSCA Vice President in support of AB 57. My name's Don Echeverry. I've been teaching music in the Washoe County School District for 27 years. Last March, when schools closed their buildings, educators immediately redesigned their curriculum to meet the needs of the children in their classrooms. During the summer, we attended classes and trainings to make sure we were ready to meet the academic challenges ahead of us. Educators have spent and will continue to spend hours preparing for the next hybrid lesson. In my class, I may have had 60% of the class sitting in front of me while 40% are participating on a camera on the computer from home. It's my job as an educator to make sure every child in that class is comprehending and absorbing the information taught. These are the items my evaluation needs to be based upon. It is this teaching environment that I will need professional coaching, and the evaluation shows. This is why I support the Washoe County School District's proposal supporting their educators in this extraordinary time. The ability to suspend SLO, SLGs allows the administrator and educator to work together to make adjustments needed. Teachers are still working through SLOs in every lesson. The difference is that they aren't picking ones to receive 15% of the evaluation on. This bill will allow the evaluation of teachers to be based on the teacher's ability to still make those one-on-one connections with students in order to not only teach, but make sure their social and emotional needs are being met. Please listen to educators and pass Assembly Bill 57. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Marks. We'll move on to the next caller in support.
Caller with the last three digits, 692. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Mary Przynski, MaryPierczynski, and I'm here on behalf of the Nevada Association of School Superintendents, which is an organization representing all 17 school superintendents in the state. And we want to thank the Washoe County School District for bringing this bill forward. We are in support of the bill and the amendment that's been proposed by Clark County School District. It's a common sense approach to dealing with the issues the pandemic has created for our teachers and our students. Recovery is going to take a long time, and this will help our teachers be able to stretch a little bit and not have fear of loss of employment while they try to move their students quickly along the path to recovery after all this time they've lost in the classroom. So we want to thank Washoe County for bringing this forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent. Next caller in support.
Caller with the last three digits of 474. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Freeman Holbrook, Freeman Holbrook. I'm calling today on behalf of the Washoe School Principals and Administrators Association. Our association represents 94% of principals and administrators in public schools in Washoe County, and we are in support of AB 57. We appreciate your consideration and want to express our thanks to the school district for including administrators in this proposal. Traditionally, teacher evaluations help school leaders support teachers and provide guidance in identifying student needs. Providing evaluation feedback and support to teachers and administrators can both equip them now as they continue to adjust to distance and hybrid learning, as well as inform areas of growth once students and teachers return to their physical classrooms. In this unprecedented time of school closures, districts and school administrators must walk a fine line regarding teacher evaluations. Districts should have the flexibility to hold teachers and administrators harmless from the challenges unique to the coronavirus environment while also continuing to provide valuable feedback. We believe this bill will do that. Educators and site administrators have been tasked with implementing district, state, and federal directives, but do not have direct say in creating the academic environment for our students this year. The lack of assessment and accurate student data from last year, in addition to the need for educators, and leaders to focus on addressing instructional strategies for remote, online, or blended learning environments should compel this body to eliminate the student learning goals from evaluations as outlined in this bill. Should this measure pass, it will allow a path for school leaders and educators to focus on the instructional and well-being needs of their students without the additional stressors of goals that they have limited control over during this unprecedented time. Again, we urge you to pass AB 57 as a way to assist students, teachers, and administrators in building a path for all to succeed. Thank you for your time and your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Holbrook. And we'll go to the next call in support.
Caller with the last three digits, 330. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
My name is Brian Rippett, B-R-I-A-N-R-I-P-P-E-T for the record. Good afternoon. I'm a science teacher from Douglas County, currently on leave serving as president of the Nevada State Education Association. I am here to convey my support for AB 57, which would pause the use of SLG data to evaluate classroom teachers. This pause will allow teachers to focus on individual students and their needs as we return to full in-person instruction. It does so by removing a very time-consuming and stressful portion of the evaluation. Classroom teachers are navigating unprecedented emotional needs of students while assessing and delivering targeted individual instruction. Pausing the SLG mandate will take a significant burden off teachers and site administrators' plates, thus allowing them to better serve their students. There is a second reason I support the SLG pause outlined in AB 57 and the amendment. I have served on the Teachers and Leaders Council, or TLC, for the past 5 years. In that time, we have had many discussions about evolving the NEPF and SLG from a pure accountability tool that targeted and punished educators to one that truly embraces collaboration and professional growth as its primary purpose. Your passage of SB 547 last session and numerous Department of Ed guidance documents in recent years are evidence of this progress. One roadblock to realizing the NEPF's potential is the SLG. The SLG is a narrow measure of one standard in one subject, yet it has become an outsized focus of the evaluation in terms of time and stress. Many teachers and site administrators still believe the SLG is a pass-fail, no adjustment allowed, high-stakes reporting measure, and often MAP tests are the tool of measure, even though they are wholly inappropriate. This is despite great efforts by the Department of Education, NSEA, and others to the contrary. So pausing the SLG is necessary to allow for a reset of this process so the teacher-administrator relationship grows through collaboration and is not adversarial. Do not mistake a SLG pause for watering down evaluations. The 10 standards and dozens of indicators in the NEPF are the meat of the framework and all remain in place with this bill. Give teachers and administrators some room to breathe in this remarkable time by supporting AB 57. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rippett. And I will take the next caller in support.
Caller with the last three digits of 918. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You'll have 2 minutes and may begin. Please press *6 to unmute yourself.
Good afternoon, Chair Bilbray Axelrod, Vice Chair Miller, and members of the Assembly Education Committee. My name is Jeff Horn, Jeffhorn, and I am the Deputy Executive Director with the Clark County Association of School Administrators and Professional Technical Employees. Our organization represents approximately 1,300 CCSD administrators, with 98% of those eligible to join the association are current members. We would like to voice our support for Assembly Bill 57, as well as the friendly amendment that was made. With the closure of schools for nearly an entire year and the uncertainty of how and when all students will be back on campus for face-to-face instruction, we believe that the temporary suspension of the requirement to utilize pupil growth and learning goals on teacher and administrator evaluations through the academic year 2022 through 2023 is appropriate. Current testing and evaluation commonly used to measure and align pupil growth during student learning has been widely inadequate and does not support meaningful data that should be utilized for measuring student outcomes. It's important to allow time for teachers and administrators to focus on teaching and learning, as well as the social and emotional welfare of our students. I thank you for your time and consideration on this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Horn. We'll take the next caller in support.
To testify in support on AB 57, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. To any callers who may have joined to testify in support on AB 57, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair? Oh, I have one caller. Caller with the last 3 digits, 497. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Yes, I'm calling from 429-1497. I appreciate listening in. What I would like with the teachers and schools is anything that I would just like the legislature to have the schools back in session and everything back the way that it was. As far as the teacher evaluations, I would like those to continue. Thank you.
Ma'am, I think your comment was probably more appropriate for public comment, but could you let us know your name? Could you state and spell your name for us?
Yes, it's Yvonne Sweeten, and it's spelled Yvonne, and the last name is Sweeten, Sweeten.
Thank you very much, Ms. Sweeten, and we will put those comments in the appropriate spot, and I thank you for calling. Okay, we'll move on to the next. I'm assuming there's probably not another call in support, but you tell me.
Chair, correct. At this time, there are no more callers in support of AB 57.
Okay, next we will hear testimony in opposition of AB 7. Please go ahead.
To testify in opposition on AB 57, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last 3 digits, 124. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You'll have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good afternoon. For the record, my name is Paul Moradkin, Moradkhan, and I am the Senior Vice President of Government Affairs for the Vegas Chamber. I would like to first thank the Washoe County School District for being accessible and having a dialogue about this bill. However, our members, who are the employers that hire the graduates from our local school districts, are opposed to this bill as written. We recognize that teachers and students have been impacted by COVID-19, just as COVID has brought challenges to all of us throughout our state. We understand the direct challenges that virtual learning has had on student performance over the last year, and why there is a request in removing the requirement for the 2021 school year and this current school year. But we do not agree with the measure carrying into the 22-23 school year if students are back in the classroom. There is also concern that this temporary measure of 0% for the performance measure could become a permanent feature in state law. Thank you for your consideration on behalf of Nevada's employers, for also the parents with children in our public school systems. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Moradkin. And next call in opposition.
Caller with the last 3 digits of 145. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good afternoon, Chair Bilbray Axelrod and Vice Chair Miller and members of the Assembly Committee on Education. This is Sarah Nick, S-A-R-A-H, last name Nick, N-I-C-K. On behalf of the Nevada Department of Education, testifying in opposition to Assembly Bill 57 because removing student outcomes from the NEPS or Nevada Educator Performance Framework would eliminate the component that provides coherence between student learning and educator practice. There are other methods to reduce teacher workload without compromising positive impacts on student learning. For example, Washoe's student learning objective expectations and schedule for the 2021 school year required the SLO to be drafted and reviewed in multiple stages. This approach increased the workload on teachers and extended the development stage well into the school year. NEPS protocols do not require this multi-step approval process. Secondly, the criteria for assessments to measure progress toward SLGs and SLOs have never required standardized assessments. It was always the intent of the Teachers and Leaders Council, or TLC, and NDE that focus on the SLGs and SLOs would be determined by student need, aligned with the standards, and not the standardized assessment available. The choice of assessment should come after setting the SLG and SLO. Aligning the assessment selection with the NEPS protocols would alleviate concerns regarding lack of access to assessments. In August 2020, NDE respectfully suggested in a memo to Washoe County that is posted as an exhibit 2 recommendations to reduce educator workload by 1, streamlining the SLO approval process to align with NEPS, and 2, allowing true flexibility in the selection of assessments. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Ms. Nick. Do we have another call in opposition?
To testify in opposition on AB 57, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. If you have just joined us to testify in opposition on AB 57, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, at this time, there are no more callers in the queue for position on AB 57.
Thank you, and we will move on to neutral if there is anyone wishing to testify in neutral on AB 57.
To testify in neutral on AB 57, please star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last 3 digits, 27, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
My name is Ed Gonzalez. My first name ED, my last name GONZALEZ. I'm a community member of the Hickey Elementary School organizational team in Sunrise Manor. The reason I'm speaking in neutral, I was initially supportive of the original bill, but I have some concerns with the amendment. I feel like if we are stating that student learning goals are not good data during this pandemic to be used for evaluation, I feel like what Assemblywoman Torres has stated, there has to be some concerns to use it in a collective bargaining aspect for merit pay and some things. I don't feel like anybody else wants to hurt teachers, especially when they've taken a chance to go to a school for incentives pay, but I feel like that needs to be reconciled. And speaking to many educators, both in my school and also to administrators at other schools, one of the many metrics that's been used for student learning goals is the MAP test, the measure of academic progress. And we've heard stories of that data being skewed by parents unintentionally trying to help students move faster through the test. And by that, we're not getting good data. And so I think there's a lot of concern about what we're trying to do with this. So I'm supportive of the concept of reducing it to 0 as a temporary measure, but those are some of the aspects that we have seen over at school levels. More importantly, I feel like when we're talking about data, most of the data that we use for evaluation is almost negative aspect, which is after the fact, not helping teachers as they move through the process, sort of like the end of credit exams that we do for SBAC. I think there needs to be a better look of how we can have real-time data at schools, especially in Clark County, to move forward. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. And I think your testimony will actually be more appropriate in opposition because you had several issues with the bill as written. So we'll, if the secretaries could please put Mr. Gonzalez in the opposition category. Are there any other calls in neutral?
To testify in neutral on AB 57, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, at this time, the public line is open and working. There are no more callers in the queue for neutral on AB 57.
Thank you very much. And at this time, I would like to ask Superintendent McNeil if you have any closing remarks.
Thank you so much, Chairwoman, and Kristen McNeil, Superintendent for the Washoe County School District. Thank you so much for the committee for hearing our testimony today. And I just truly like to thank the committee. We will continue to work with our stakeholders on the concerns that were brought up today. And we look forward to moving this forward with your committee. So thank you once again for everyone.
Thank you very much. And with that, I will close the hearing on AB 57, and we will move into public comment. Before we go to this agenda item, I'd like to remind those present that the period for public comment is an opportunity to discuss general matters that fall within the purview of this committee. Additionally, please remember to clearly state and spell your name and limit your comments to 2 minutes. Staff in our broadcast and production services, please add the first caller with public comment to the meeting.
To give public comment, please press star 9 now to take your place in queue. If you are wishing to give public comment, please press star 9 now to take your place in queue. Chair, at this time, there's no one who is in queue for public comment. The line is open and working.
Thank you very much. And I would like to take a point of personal privilege to thank everyone who was online and ready to take questions. I know our committee really likes to dive deep, and so we went out of our way to make sure that everything that I thought would possibly come up, that we would be able to have answers for those. So thank you. If you didn't get to speak, I just appreciate you spending some time with us. Are there any other comments from the members before we adjourn? I'm not seeing anyone. No? All right. Well, our next meeting will be Tuesday, February 23rd at 1:30. That concludes our meeting for the day. Meeting is adjourned.